From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the Witching Hours. And we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am China the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I think I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay for a Thursday, ready for the weekend already, for sure.
Yes, Friday Eve.
Yeah. So, you want to get weird?
Of course.
All right. Well, off we go. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you already to the people throwing out subs already. Norse, CMC Airboss. Thank you guys so much for the subs. We have a great show for you tonight, and we're glad to have you here. We are going to be talking about the cabin on 360. Well, we have a wonderful guest on tonight, and we are going to be talking about, well, things that go bump in the night. I guess I'll just say this. We got some interesting things coming up for the Witching Hours. We'll be sharing, so just stay tuned because there will be some schedule changes on the horizon.
Yes.
And some movement that's going to happen, all for the positive. Some of which we might talk about here in a little bit with, well, more appearances that we'll be making with the Witching Hours. So we're glad to have you here. We're glad to be hanging out with all of you tonight. And another episode 101.
101.
The next step to 200.
Working towards 200 now.
For the Witching Hours. All right, Jenny, you ready to get into some news?
I hope that it's all right this week.
All right. Researchers are planning to excavate rumored site of Noah's Ark, situated approximately 3 kilometers north of the Iranian border and around 6,500 feet above sea level. The site, which for years has been hailed by some as the final resting place of the Ark itself, could soon be at the center of a significant new archaeological excavation. Researchers from California-based firm Noah Ark Scans are hoping to prove once and for all that the Duropanar Formation really is the biblical vessel built by Noah at the time of the Old Testament. The location lies in an active earth flow with harsh winters, so protecting the area is our top priority, the researcher Andrew Jones said. Over the next few years, our Turkish university partners will conduct non-destructive tests like soil sampling, radar scans, and other methods to determine if the structures we've detected are truly man-made or simply natural formations. 30 samples of soil and rock from the site were analyzed and determined to contain clay-like materials, marine deposits, and even traces of small shellfish dating back around
small shellfish
3,500 to 5,000 years ago, which by my math kind of, I don't know if that's old enough, to be honest. Our studies show that this region harbored life in that period, and at some point it was covered by water, which reinforces the possibility that a catastrophic event of great magnitude occurred, the international team of researchers wrote at the time. So we'll keep an eye out on it and see if there's any information.
What if they find it and it's actually fits Graham Hancock's time frame?
Well, I mean, that should be the time frame.
If
the Pleistocene ended 10,000 BCE, the end of the last ice age, that should occur when the flood happened. So when I see 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, I'm saying you're about 5,000 years too short.
Yeah.
Of course, that's going to be, that's up for debate depending on your, religious beliefs and so on and so forth. But 10,000 years ago, or 10,000 BCE, 12,000 years ago is the agreed upon time for the most part from scientists. And if you're a follower of Graham Hancock, someone who's read his stuff or watched his show on Netflix and all those things. I have another issue. One is that they're always looking for the ark the way it's described in Genesis. But one of the problems with that for me, and this is just me taking in information and spitting stuff back out, is when you look back at the Sumerian text and you look at the Epic of Gilgamesh and you have the same stories of the flood, there it would have been a reed boat, which would have been a circle. So, if we're looking for the
Hmm.
real ark or the real boat, I don't know that it's necessarily going to be like,
What we picture it as.
yacht shaped. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. So we'll see what
Interesting.
happens, though. It's interesting, and I definitely am always for, trying to find information about the ancient past. So I
Hmm.
wish them luck in their excavations. Story number 2, 90-foot underwater pyramid could predate Egyptian landmarks and Stonehenge by thousands of years.
I saw that yesterday or today, but I was wondering if it was for real. So it is for
Yeah.
real.
A 90-foot pyramid submerged just off the coast of Japan is turning heads
Oh,
and
off the
could
coast
shake
of
up
Japan.
and could
Oh,
shake
see,
up
I didn't even
anything we
know where it
thought.
was.
Yeah, about ancient civilization sitting 82 feet below sea level near the Ryukyu Islands. I probably butchered that. The Yonaguni Monument has baffled scientists and divers since it was first discovered in 1986. The enormous stone structure, complete with angular steps and flat terraces, looks uncannily like the ruins of a man made temple, despite being over 10,000 years old.
Oh,
That timeline, if proven accurate, would date it thousands of years earlier than the Egypt's pyramids or England's Stonehenge, and possibly make it the oldest known structure ever built by humans. Supporters of the theory say the Yonaguni Formation, nicknamed Japan's Atlantis, may be evidence of a forgotten civilization that predates the rise of agriculture, a concept that,
oh.
if true, would rewrite the timeline of human achievement.
Speaking of
Speaking of Graham
Graham
Hancock.
Hancock, he's gonna have to make an appendices and have a new edition of his book come out
Yeah.
so that, he can write this new stuff in there.
Now, of course, as typically goes along with this stuff, skeptics aren't buying it. The Sunken Stones sparked fresh debate when author Graham Hancock and archaeologist Flint Dibble clashed over
There's
on
okay, hold on a second.
an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah,
There's an archaeologist, and his name is Flint.
Flint. Yes. I don't know him. I'm not familiar with the work, but maybe that's a nickname, right?
I don't know, but, Flint's a kinda rock, and he's an
Yeah.
archaeologist. I mean, it's like he couldn't have got named a better name.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of crazy natural stuff, and I see nothing here that to me reminds me of human architecture. Dibble said on the Joe Rogan podcast. Hancock, a well-known proponent of lost ancient civilizations, argued to me it's stunning that what you see is totally natural. So they've been debating over this. If this was really built by a mysterious civilization more than 10,000 years ago, it would place Yonaguni in the same league as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, one of the oldest known man-made structures, which is dated to around 9500 BCE. Japanese geologist Masaki Kimura has also backed the theory, arguing the monument may be part of a lost continent known as Lemuria.
Oh, Lemuria. Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I just
Uh,
think it's fascinating that we keep finding older and older things.
yeah, and we're just going to
Yeah.
keep finding
Yeah.
older stuff. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a point where we find the oldest thing because the fossil record is so minuscule
Yeah.
that the
Further back you
likelihood
go.
that we found the oldest thing is remote, I would
Yeah.
say, you know. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. Number 3, scientists say they revived the dire wolf through biotech company's
This
de-extinction
has been
process.
blowing up the internet.
It has been crazy, and I was the second I saw the story, I was like, "This is here we go." But I'm sure everyone has heard it by now. But if you haven't, in a scientific breakthrough that could forever change how humans interact with our planet, Colossal Biosciences said it brought back an extinct animal that last walked the earth roughly, say it again, 10,000 years ago.
You don't say.
We got a theme tonight. The dire wolf, the US-based technology company, is also known for its ambitious goal of bringing back the extinct woolly mammoth by 2028, just 3 years away. Colossal also said it had cloned 4 red wolves, a critically endangered animal with under 2 dozen thought to be left in the wild. We can talk about this a little
Hmm.
bit with the story as well. We're not a foundation. We're not a nonprofit. We are not an academic think tank. We are trying to actually develop products and build technologies, Ben Lamb, the company's CEO and co-founder, said. Colossal says its investors include Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Paris Hilton, and Peter Jackson.
I
In
don't know if we need to
March,
clone them, though.
the company revealed the woolly mouse, a new type of mouse with a thicker coat of
Oh,
fur
yeah, we
modeled
talked
after the woolly
about
mammoth.
them. Mhm,
We talked about them recently, had pictures up on our Discord.
mhm.
I had all the confidence that this was going to work, Beth Shapiro, Colossal's chief scientist, said. So we're going to get into this a little bit. Shapiro's team had to extract more dire wolf DNA from 2 existing fossils to better sequence the animal's genome. From there, Colossal elected to use a close relative of the dire wolf as the base.
Yeah.
We've taken a gray wolf genome, a gray wolf cell, which is already genetically 99.5% identical to dire wolves because they're very closely related,
Mhm.
Shapiro said. And we've edited those cells at multiple places in his DNA sequence to contain the dire wolf version of the DNA.
Okay.
Not everyone is convinced. Dr. Julie Meechan has made studying wolves her life's work and was a co-author along with Shapiro on a 2021 paper that concluded dire wolves and gray wolves diverged millions of years ago. In other words, gray wolves and dire wolves were separated by millions of years, like
Yeah.
5 millions of years, I think I read in one thing. So even though they're genetically similar, they became genetically similar not because they're related, but just because they ended up kind of having the same DNA traits. They evolved to be the same kind of thing.
Mhm.
But they actually argue that the dire wolf was actually sprung more from a jackal
Oh,
than it
really?
was from anything similar to a gray wolf. So it diverged from wolves all the way back when the wolf first started being domesticated. So
Hmm.
there's an argument taking place here. One
Yeah.
is you've made a so the arguments that I've read against this is that we don't have dire wolves. What
Yeah.
we have are gray wolves that have had their DNA manipulated to look like what we think dire wolves were.
Yeah.
They were given white fur. We don't
Mhm.
know for sure they had white fur.
Mhm.
Um, Game of Thrones gave them white fur.
Mhm.
And one of the scientists I was reading was saying essentially like they just went ahead and did like George R. R. Martin's version of a direwolf,
Which I saw
doing it
he
for
got a
direwolf.
picture taken with them.
Yes, he was invited to come see them. The third wolf is named Khaleesi.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah. And so I don't know. Let us know what you think. If you guys have been talking about this in chat, you've read the story. Do we have dire wolves now, de-extinction process, or do we just have manipulated gray wolves? So another argument about
Mhm.
this is that these wolves aren't being raised by dire wolf parents. And so if it's a
Mhm.
dire wolf, it won't have any of the behavioral traits
No.
or things that are passed down by dire wolves. So it's not going to act like a dire wolf. It's going to
No.
act like a gray wolf. And so, interesting. This is going to be something we're going to have to talk about more when they make the woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
Is it going to be an Asian elephant with hair?
Yeah.
So this is something to think about as these stories keep popping up because we've had a lot of them going all the way back to our mammoth meatball. Toddler discovers 3,800-year-old Egyptian amulet while hiking with her family in Israel. Ziv Nitzan was on a hike with her family when a rock on the ground caught her eye. But when the 3-year-old girl picked up the small stone and cleaned it off, she realized it was no ordinary rock. Instead, the toddler had chanced upon a 3,800-year-old treasure, the
Wow.
Israel Antiquities Authority announced this week. Archaeologists say Nitzan picked up an ancient Canaanite scarab that dates back to the Middle Bronze Age. When her siblings realized what she'd found, they asked her parents to take a look. The family then handed the scarab over to the government. There are thousands of stones over there, and it was upside down, but somehow, out of all those stones, she picked this one, the girl's mother said. Scarabs are small, decorated objects that originated in ancient Egypt. They're typically shaped like dung beetles, which ancient Egyptians considered a sacred symbol of new life. Nitzan discovered the scarab during a family outing at the Tel Ezekah archaeological site near the city of Beit Shemesh. Over the past 15 years, archaeologists have unearthed evidence of many changing cultures over the course of history. The Bible also references the area there over the famed battle between David and Goliath. So there we go. I wanted to mention it was given over to the museum. It will be placed alongside other Egyptian and Canaanite artifacts, many of which have never been displayed before. The exhibition will include seals of the pharaohs, Egyptian statues, ritual vessels, and other examples of Egypt's cultural influence on Israel. If she put it in her pocket and kept it, we wouldn't know about it. Yoli Schwartz, a spokesperson for the IA, tells the New York Times, we're very happy to show it to the public. So,
yeah, I mean, the family could have just took it home.
Kids like to pick up rocks. We know that.
We love everybody who doesn't love a rock.
Our son has brought home many, many rocks, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, no 3,800-year-old Egyptian artifacts. So.
He did find a full size, some sort of shellfish fossil, though, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll find all kinds of wonderful things. And that was the weird news.
Yay.
All right. Dennis Estlock is a medium and remote viewer with over 20 years as a paranormal investigator. His first memorable interaction with spirit was at age 7 when his grandfather passed and came to him to say goodbye with no knowledge he had passed just a couple hours earlier. His older brother also came to say goodbye when he was 16. Dennis conducted his first EVP session, not even knowing it was called that, at the age of 10, after hearing you could listen to and hear spirits if you place a recorder in a cemetery. Currently, Dennis is the owner of an actively haunted location just outside of Mechanicsville, Virginia, that sits on 7 acres of battlefield from the battles of Bethesda Church. The Cabin on 360, as it's known, is open to teams to book investigations and host numerous events, investigations for fundraising causes. Dennis is available to lecture on remote viewing, investigating the paranormal, to discuss the Cabin on 360 and the land's history, as well as investigating private and commercial locations with activity. He additionally aids teams from time to time at other locations. Please welcome to the show, Dennis Estlock. How are you doing, Dennis?
I am doing good, Frosty. Hi, Jenny Lee.
Hello. Thanks for coming on. We're excited to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all for asking me to take part in this.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. We're really interested. We're not that far away
Yes.
from where the cabin is and where you're located. And I haven't. It was kind of something that I've just kind of started hearing about the last year or so, and I am really excited to know that there's something so close, to be honest. So I'm really eager to hear about the Cabin on 360 tonight. But I guess first we should start, Dennis, with just kind of going over. We talked about your bio, but a little bit about how you got started in the paranormal field and what kind of got you interested in that, and start from there.
Like it says in my bio, when I was 7, I slept top bunk. I had a brother that was 4 years older than me, slept bottom bunk. And middle of the night, I remember my granddaddy standing right beside my bunk, looking me eye to eye, telling me goodbye. He loved me and he'd see me later. That set off a little confusion with me. I'm like, well, all right, granddaddy, I didn't even know you guys came up, but I guess I'll see you in the morning. They lived about 2.5 hours away. And just poof, he was gone. Hey, FPRI in the house. That would probably be my buddy John Sullivan.
There we go.
But it was confusing to me because I didn't even know that they had come up. So I roll over, go back to sleep. A little bit later, mom comes in, turns on the light, tells my brother and I, you need to get your butts out of bed.
Aw.
We need to get dressed.
Mm.
And I asked, is this because granddaddy left? I didn't even know they were coming up. When did they come?
Oh, goodness.
And she gets that perplexed look on her face and says, what are you talking about? I said, well, he was right here a little while ago, woke me up, told me goodbye. He loved me and he'd see me later. And she's like, you just need to get your ass out of bed. And she had gotten the phone call not long before that he had had a massive heart attack and passed away.
Wow.
But I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, I looked him face to face in the middle of the night, telling me goodbye, and he loved me.
Yeah.
Hi, Rhonda. Uh, so that started some curiosity of, you know, what the hell happened.
Mhm.
And then, like it said in the bio, somewhere around 10 or 11, 12 years old, I've got two cousins that are in my age range. One's 3 months older and one's 2 years older. And we had heard somewhere that if you set a tape recorder in a cemetery, you could hear the dead. And we're like, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Well, they had a huge cemetery pretty close to them. So we go slipping out at night, and this was in the early 80s, late 70s. It
Mhm.
had the boom box, the one that took like 12 D cell
Oh,
batteries,
yeah.
and you could
Uh-huh.
build some bicep from,
Those are fun, yeah.
looked like Popeye. So that was my Christmas gift. So we towed it off to the cemetery and we set it on the headstone and went a couple of 100 feet away and just stared at it, because you don't want somebody to steal it at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of a cemetery.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, what we captured was somebody whistling a tune, and none of us heard anybody. So their dad was a musician, my uncle. So we asked him, "Hey, what's this tune? Do you recognize it?" And he said, "Yeah, it's from the '40s. I don't remember what it is now, but he was like, where'd you guys get that?" And we're like, we may have snuck into the cemetery last night. And of course, the first part is we had to admit we snuck out of the
Yeah.
house,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but that that became kind of a regular for us to tote the boom box off to the cemetery and see what else we could get. And then when I was 16, I was in a brace. I had torn the ligaments in my neck. So I'm walking to the corner market to get cigarettes, and it's about noon. I know that kind of gives away my age. Uh, 16, I could go buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had a brother 4 years older than me. And anybody that has siblings or somebody that you've spent a huge amount of time with, their energy. When they try to sneak up on you, you just feel that
Mhm.
energy. You recognize
Mhm.
it. And I felt my brother's presence and I heard him say, "Goodbye, I love you, I'll always have your back." I'm like, I'm looking all around like, what the hell? I had no clue what was going on. Um, like I said, that was right about noon. 9 o'clock that night, the police beat on the door, told us that they had found my brother. He had hanged himself in a little wooded trail.
Mhm.
Wow.
And I told mom and dad that, right at noon, I'm pretty certain that's when he passed. I know he was here. He had checked in with me. And the coroner's report validated that somewhere between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. was time of death.
Wow.
So that started me on the I want to know more.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I've said it hundreds of times when I do my presentations, when this meat suit dies, where does the energy and the essence that is me go?
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
way too much energy here to just go gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've got friends that are like, "Man, you're just wasting time. When you die, it just goes black and you're worm food." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Nah,
But
there's got
you
to be
know
more."
from your experiences, that's not
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
true,
oh
you
yeah.
know?
And now having owning the cabin, and I've got hundreds of investigations under my belt. There's no doubt in my mind that um, I'm growing my list every day. I know I can come back and haunt people, and I got a
Yeah.
list. Hey, Daryl.
Yeah.
But yeah, that list grows every day. So those that have OCD, yeah, they're in trouble. They're going to have all those little cockeyed pictures.
Well, that's kind of the way that it always goes. And I think even most people who are believers in the paranormal, people who have seen evidence of, I don't know. I mean, for me, I went through all the phases too of just being like, I just don't know. But those personal experiences, once you've been able to, once you've done it and you've gathered some evidence, it's hard for anyone to tell me anything differently now. I try to have an open mind about everything, but and I'll tell you what gets me, Dennis, is a really good EVP.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple really good EVPs, and I haven't done a ton of paranormal. We've done some paranormal investigation, but I don't have as much experience as a lot of
Yeah.
podcasts do. And I've gotten a couple what I thought to be pretty decent EVPs. And once you hear a good EVP and you know that you got it, or it's someone you trust got it, that it's not faked. It is, to me, still some of the best evidence you can capture.
Yeah, I get sent evidence all the time. Hey, listen to
Mhm.
this, or what do you think of this video? This came from my Ring cam, or and a lot of it I'm able to look at and go, okay, well, with a little common sense, thinking about the environment, thinking about this, thinking about that, uh, it may or may not be valid. And there have been some that come in that I just go, man, I got nothing for you. It looks to me
Yeah.
like you may have had a visitor. But
Mhm.
you are right. When you're sitting in a darkened area and you know exactly who's with you, and you hear a voice on an EVP that you cannot explain, and it's a direct response to whatever's being said or whatever's
Mhm.
asked. Yeah, there's no topping that.
Yeah. There's no going back to me once you've had that experience, and that goes for anything we talk about in this program.
Mhm.
Once you've had your personal experience, it just changes, and the way that your brain interprets that information, it just becomes different. And like I say all the time, and if someone is skeptical, the first thing I invite them to do is it's super easy because you can use your any cell phone you have as a recorder on it. Go try it out. And I often say, don't do it in your own house because then that might really freak you out.
Yeah.
So, go somewhere else and try it. And more often than not, you're able to find something. I think
Go to
I
your
got
buddy's
lucky.
house.
Yeah, go to your
Yeah.
buddy's house.
I wanted to ask you, so you had those experiences, which are amazing because it's
Mhm,
the experience with your grandfather and your brother. It's like they're happening around the exact same time that the person is passing.
Mhm.
Have you had other interactions with them since then? Have they come to visit you in dreams or uh, in your waking consciousness? Or
That's rather difficult to respond to.
okay,
Now, as a medium yourself, Jenny, I'm
hmm
sure you have the same block that I do. I don't try to talk to my own family
hmm
simply because my mind will poison what I receive.
mhm, mhm,
If what hypothetically, if I'm doing a connection for anybody that's here in chat, I don't have to try to make sense of it. It just is what it
yeah,
is. This is what I
exactly.
got.
hmm
But if I'm getting a message for myself from my loved ones, I'm going to try to interpret it and I'm going to try to make sense of it. So I don't reach out to them. I have had um, moments where I think maybe I've heard from them, but I
hmm
don't actively seek them out.
Okay.
Um, Now I know my dad, when he was killed 19 years ago in a car crash, that night he came to me in my dream
Mm.
and told me that the young man that was also involved in the crash, I needed to meet with him and I needed to set his mind at ease. He didn't need to carry that burden with him for the rest of his life.
Oh,
It
wow.
was
mhm,
simply an accident. And ironically, with that, so my father was killed in a crash on a Monday morning on his way to work. 6 years prior to that, my mom had passed away. So dad lived with us. Um, and I was sitting in his room Sunday night, and he made the most prophetic statement that I guarantee these words will go with me to my grave. I've spent more of my life with your mother than without her. And I'm just ready
mhm,
to go home and be with my best friend.
Oh,
mhm.
Um, but you know, little did we know the next morning God was going to
yeah,
facilitate that to happen. And the whole
absolutely.
story around that gets pretty involved. I spoke to the kid's mom. I spoke to the kid. Um, but he came to me that night and told me that that boy didn't need to carry that burden with him for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Now, that evening prior to, I mean, I'm there's no way to even sugarcoat it. My friends and family gathered, what little family I have down here, gathered around me, and they got me so absolutely tore up, drunk, but I shouldn't even have had a dream. Uh,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Mhm.
but I woke up the next morning, no hangover, felt perfectly fine, um, just raring to go. So I'm pretty convinced that my dad came to me and said everything the way it needed to be,
It sounds like it.
and just let me
Absolutely.
know that he was with mom and he was fine. So,
Yeah.
but I've only had interaction through other mediums with them since.
Okay. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's pretty common for a lot of mediums.
Yeah.
They worry about their, like you said, the interpretation, because
It's
you
easy
have
to
all that,
contaminate.
yeah, you have all that bias of your own experiences and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, perfect example. I did a connection for a young lady in Canada, and her question to me was, what did he think of the gift the kids gave him? Hey, Ryan. And my answer to her was, I see him laughing and saying, there's so much candy. There's so much candy. Now, if
Mhm.
that had been me trying to connect to my loved ones and I got a response similar to that, I'd be like, what in the hell are they trying to tell me?
Yeah.
But I didn't have to interpret anything that
Yeah.
wasn't
Hmm.
mine. I just gave it to her exactly as it was given to me. And she's like, that is wonderful. All three kids put a bag of Werther's Originals in his casket. That was his favorite candy. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
That's wonderful.
But
Yeah.
yeah, if I had tried to, understand something along that line of, I guess it would be that fringe of, well, it could mean this, it could mean that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And if I get that from my own family, I'm going to throw a bias spin to it. So
Yeah.
I don't even try.
That's interesting
Understandable.
because I haven't really thought about that before because you do talk to family, Jenny.
Hmm.
But I will say, I don't consider myself to be a medium yet. I feel like that's giving too much credit to myself. But I am starting to learn a little bit, and I have had some things come through trying to perform mediumship. And I will say that has been difficult for me too because I'll feel like I want to talk to my mom and I feel like my mom is coming through, but I can hear her. Usually when you do it, you kind of hear, you can get those thoughts in your head that aren't yours. But with my mother, I can hear her say lots of things that are just built into my mind. So I don't know whether that's something that's coming through at that
Hmm.
moment or if it's just my millions,
Because yeah,
memories
because
of
you're
her
thinking
saying
of her.
things
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
through. And so, yeah, I could see how that could be much more difficult than when you're reading for somebody that you maybe don't even know. And so
Yep.
all that stuff is just, well, this is coming from somewhere. I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Well, I do some mentoring as well. And I'll give you a very good piece of advice, and I almost guarantee you, Jenny is going to agree with me. Tell yourself, I need bread, milk, and eggs. And then try to do it and disguise your voice. You can't
Mm,
disguise your own voice to yourself. You will always hear your own voice. But if you're getting
mhm.
message from the other side, it's not your voice and you can't disguise it to yourself.
Hmm.
So if you're hearing other voices, accept it as valid and go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. It's one of those things. And I think one of the most unique things about it is just so how different it can be. Like we've had so many mediums on this show and like there's similarities, there's strings that go along through each one. But there can be, everyone, and all the clairs and all that stuff. It gets super interesting. But
Yeah, there's, you know, a lot of them that I mentor are like, all right, so this is going on. What do I do? You know what? I've never encountered that. I don't have an answer for you. Good luck.
yeah,
Let me know how the hell it works out. Because if I ever encounter that, I want to know what you did.
mine's been really interesting because I've done it in a couple of Jenny's classes. She was doing, like some, beginning medium classes, and so we did readings there, and that worked really well for me. The other time that I've actually just had spirits come to me to come through is I was driving home from work, like in the middle of nowhere, probably in that state of mind where you're kind of driving, but you're kind of also in the kind of in between there. I had someone come through there and I was like, nope, I can't talk right now because I'm driving. And then and then it wasn't that long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, someone tried to come in while I was sleeping. Like I woke up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden it was like, boom, like bright, like they wanted to talk to me. And it's like, how come you guys come through like now? Like,
Because your mind is not overpowered
at
with all
ease.
kinds of other garbage.
Yeah, especially me, because the rest of the day my brain's usually going crazy. So that makes sense.
So
All right,
Dennis,
Jenny.
for your medium experiences, how do you experience mediumship?
It depends on the scenario.
Mhm.
Most of the time, it is well. Prime example: the young lady that reached out to me, she was in Canada, asked me the question about the gift the kids gave. That one, as soon as she messaged me, like it was all through Facebook Messenger, she said, "Are you able to connect to loved ones?" And as soon as she did, I had a young man present to me in his death state, and he was a fire victim.
Mhm.
And my response to her, I didn't tell her what I saw. I simply told her what I felt because I
Yeah,
didn't want her to have that graphic.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, but I told her, well, first thing I want you to know is it feels like my whole body's on fire right now.
Wow.
And then I told him, you can back off. I don't need that sensation.
Mhm.
That's yours. You can talk to me, but don't share that with me.
Mhm.
There are other times where I don't actively seek them, but they will step forward, or I will walk into a location. I think one of the funniest ones. I was on my way back. My son-in-law is U.S. Navy, so my daughter and grandbabies and son-in-law lived in New York at the time, and it's like 2 in the morning. I'm driving home. This is a 9.5, 10-hour drive. My coffee cup's empty, the fuel light's on, I'm out of cigarettes, and
Oh
I'm like,
no.
whatever the first gas station is, I am pulling in.
Yeah.
And I walked in the door and I acknowledged the cashier over there, and I'm like, oh shit, please don't let her know. There is a little short, older woman standing behind him, looking over his shoulder at me coming in the door, and
Mm.
you get that look.
Mm.
And like, oh shit, she knows. She knows. That little woman chased me around the store while I
Oh my
was making my
goodness.
coffee, and
Yeah.
I was getting a energy drink as well. And she's like, "You have to tell him," and she's rattling off this list of things. Um, but that was, it's kind of unusual that I walk into a scenario where they're at.
Mhm.
And as
Yeah.
she put it, you're my last chance to tell him. You have to tell him these things. So I just unleashed on the poor boy.
Oh.
I said, look, this is going to get really odd, but Grandma wants me to tell you a few things. And I go through this laundry list, and his jaw's on the counter, and he's like, how the hell do you know any of this? And she's standing right behind you. And of course, you get that instant head jerk, and what, you're not
Yeah.
going to see
Mhm.
her. But
Well,
almost,
that's a work night that guy never forgot.
Yeah.
oh, I guarantee. Because right after that, he says, well, do me a huge favor, will you? Please tell her I said thank you. And I watched her put her hand up on his shoulder,
Oh.
and he snapped his head around real quick. And I went, you felt that? And he's like, what the hell was that? And I said, you felt her put her hand on your shoulder. And he goes, yeah. Oh, okay. And I looked past him and I said, are we good now? Can I go home? And she thanked me 100 times over, and out the
Aw.
door I went. But usually it's something where, um, so I had another young lady at random message me through Facebook. I had done a podcast like 2 years earlier, and she goes, are you the same Dennis Estlock that was on such and such podcast? Yeah.
Mm.
She's like, can you connect to loved ones? And this one, I'm sitting out on my back deck, uh, beautiful evening. I'm having a cigarette, sipping my coffee, and this little boy presented to me right after that message came in. And I looked at the message and I looked at the little boy like, okay, we're going to do this. So my wife walks out a couple of minutes later, and I'm sitting there with just alligator tears running down my
Oh,
face. And she's like, "So what the hell's wrong with you?" And I just showed her my phone, and she's like, "Never mind, I understand." And she went right
Mhm.
back in the house. But the first thing that the little boy told me was, "I want you to know I felt more love in that one decision than I would have felt in a lifetime of existing." And I just shared that to her, and she sends back a crying emoji and says, "Thank you so much. You just took so much weight off my heart."
oh wow.
Mm.
But she had given up the pregnancy because something in one of the test results said that there was going to be an issue.
Mm.
Then I have an older man steps forward, shows me this beautiful pond and rolling hills in the background, and he and the little boy are fishing. And I said, um, he says, "This is home." And the little boy says, "Now I can go fishing with Papa anytime I want."
Oh,
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I asked her if she recognized who the older man would be, and she's like, "That's my Papa."
oh,
So
Yeah.
from time to time, it's a matter of I make connection because they're there, and I think we've been explained as we have a light about us that they can
mm-hmm.
see.
Yeah, they
Uh,
recognize it for sure.
yeah, and other times it's because somebody needs that connection, and their loved one is willing to step forward and share
Mhm.
what needs to be told.
So when you're seeing these spirit folks, are you seeing them with your eyes or are you seeing them with your mind's eye?
Sometimes both.
Yeah.
The little older lady that was in the gas station, I saw her with my eyes.
Mm.
Wow.
She was standing there just as plain as he was standing there, but I could see the light around her, so I knew she wasn't
She
physically
wasn't
there.
yeah. Wow.
And that's when it became the, "Oh shit, please don't let her know."
Mhm.
Oh shit, she knows.
I just want a Red Bull. Leave me alone.
Right? Just
Yeah.
let me get my coffee and my mean bean, man. I swear I'll leave. Too late.
Yeah.
So it sounds like all the other things, like, are you hearing them as like the thoughts in your mind that aren't your thoughts? Or are you hearing them audibly?
Um, it's like a conversation in my head.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, Now, I don't get me wrong, I've heard audibles before,
Yeah.
but most of the time, if I'm doing spirit connection, trying to give message to a loved one, then it's all the conversation takes place in my head,
Yeah.
and it goes right back to that. You can't disguise your own voice to yourself.
Hmm.
Trust
Mhm.
what you're being told. Spirit's not going to lead you wrong because they have no reason to.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's some
Very
good
interesting.
stories. I like that gas station story.
Yeah.
So
Well,
tell us about,
that
go
guy's
ahead,
got a good
Pastor.
story now too. That guy's,
Yeah.
that he's got a
He
party
does.
story now.
Hey, it
This
was
one time
funny.
I was working. This one night.
It was funny because towards the end of it, he looks at me and he goes, "I've seen you people on TV, but I thought it was all bullshit."
That's
I'm
all
like, "Well,
BS.
hello, it's not. Now go back to school, like Grandma
Uh-huh.
said."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about the cabin on 360. What is the history of the cabin?
Well, it's pretty amazing considering what you guys had talked about with your weird news. So about 10,000 years, no,
Right at the end of the
10,000 years
Pleistocene era.
ago, there was a pack of dire wolves. No.
uh, and they were all white.
Yeah, they're all
Mhm.
white.
But
It is
now,
interesting
so
though, Dennis, because before you get into just because you mentioned it, everyone talks about how old some places are compared to others. Well, when we moved into the area that we live now, we're not that far from you. We're down on the Appomattox, and the area that we're in, when I started doing some historical research on that, some of the Native American sites here date back thousands of years. So,
Mhm.
it is, it's not impossible for us here in America to have some old history coming through.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be nosy. Where at on the Appomattox?
I'll say, well, the Appomattox down towards where it meets with Swift Creek.
I'm at
We're
City
not that
Point.
far apart, so I know you know where that's at. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at City Point.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
We're just down the river a little ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Mhm.
hop and skip over the river.
That's
Mhm.
funny.
It's
That
probably
is.
quicker. It's quicker by boat than it is by land.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially going
Uh-huh.
across that cluster that they have made the super road, Route 10.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. Oh
What
If
a
yeah.
we just
Yeah.
get in our ark or round boat.
Or
round boat.
our reed boat.
Yes. So the cabin on 360, the first open house that we can find. So Ryan, I don't know if Ryan Jones is still in the chat or not, but his grandfather started Jones Construction and Realty and bought this land in 1978. And he bought the land just to build the cabin to be a model home for log cabin sales.
Mm.
So the first documents we find are in 1980 for an open house. Now, um, the brick rancher that's on the property was already on the land, but it wasn't on the survey map. So they entered a new survey plat in May of '79 and drew in the structure that is the brick rancher. It's all one parcel. Um, the log cabin, the brick rancher, and the 7.2 acres of battlefield is all one piece. But yeah, it doesn't have a huge old, long history for the buildings. I'm
Hmm.
going to guess the brick rancher is probably somewhere in the late 50s, early 60s for a build
Mhm.
date. But like you had mentioned, we have native inhabitants on that land.
Mhm.
Um, Somewhere about the 1630s, the European settlers were pushing up into that portion of Hanover County
Yeah.
and literally just shoving the natives off the property, if not killing them, to take the land.
Yeah.
So the question has to be asked, and we all know that the natives were very in tune with the earth and spirit and Mother Nature. Did they create something, or what, you know, for lack of better terms, conjure something and leave it behind? I'm a strong believer in this location that yes, they did.
Oh wow.
There is something of a darker nature in the rancher in the basement. Um, it doesn't physically do much, but the emotional and the mental aspect of the games it plays are pretty significant. I've watched many a grown man come out of that building in tears.
Wow.
Mhm. Wow.
What is the Civil War history of the battlefield?
So within about a mile and a half, there's about 2,264 men that were killed, captured, wounded, or missing in action. The trouble is to find out on that exact parcel of land, anytime that you look at historic maps and everything, they try to lump everything close by together because it's not a significant battle. But the battles of Bethesda Church, we sit 1/10 of a mile from the remnants of the foundation of Bethesda Church that was a Confederate headquarters.
Okay.
Um, but that location, we sit 2/10 of a mile from a major crossroad, and it was a main thoroughfare into Richmond for troop movement, supplies, and things of that nature. So it was very significant to the Confederates. They were told at all costs maintain that crossroad. So they did their absolute best. We've found both Union and Confederate bullets on the property, cannonball fragments from
Mhm.
what we suspect is about a mile away was the Via House, and that was a Union headquarters.
Hmm.
Um, and then the Confederates just across the road from our land had 6 cannons lined up at one point aimed at the Via House.
So they're
So
shelling each other and it's
yeah, they're
falling in that
Mhm.
property. Yeah.
exactly. And as I've described it many times during the presentation, you have the Union headquarters here, you have the Confederate headquarters here, and right in the middle is Oh Shitsville. Welcome to Oh Shitsville.
Yeah.
That's what you should have called it.
Well, it didn't look so good on the
Doesn't look good.
LLC. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you have Totopotomoy Creek, you have Metadequin Creek, you have Hawes Shop 2, Pole Green Church, all of those battles right in that immediate area
Yeah.
took place. And, they got pretty horrific.
Mhm.
Ryan actually found a journal entry that talks about the little red cap boy. And he was a 15-year-old Confederate soldier. And we think we know pretty close where that battle took place that he was involved in. But he had run off to join the Confederate Army because his two older brothers did.
Mhm.
It says that their color bearer was dropped, so he ran over and picked up colors, and he's quoted as saying, damn them all to hell. They've killed my brothers. They may as well kill me too.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes on to describe that, quote unquote, the last that could be seen of his fragile body as his limbs were turned to shrapnel
Mm.
was his little red cap flipping through the air after they trained a big gun on him.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So it was very brutal right in that immediate area.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot, how in Virginia you just can't throw a rock without hitting the battlefield.
Yeah.
It's like that pretty much
Well,
everywhere.
Yeah, because even if there wasn't a battlefield, there was still like troop movement going through
And
there.
troop movements and encampments and
Mhm.
watches and
Hospitals.
hospitals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right where I sit looking at a map, so like I said, I'm off City Point. That was the largest and busiest port in the world during the Civil War. My
Mhm.
backyard was a Union encampment. Right across the road from me, I have the remnants of a fort where they did the bakery.
Mhm.
So, it's hard to get away from it in this state, especially in this side of the state because we're so close to Richmond and it was such
Yep.
a target.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. In Petersburg, just all of it. It, Civil War battlefields, I guess I'm getting more interested in Civil War battlefields because of the paranormal aspect to it. Because,
Mhm.
when you talk about, the story that you were just talking about, like war is a terrible thing. And it's gonna leave traces behind because there was so much tragedy and so much trauma that's going to happen there. And that was where we captured one of our best EVPs. If I might send it to you, Dennis, sometime just to have you check it out because you have some experience with this stuff. But we were visiting a battlefield before we moved back down here. We were up in
As the
Orange.
wilderness battlefield.
Yeah, and we were just going for a walk, and Jenny was like, "Hey, why don't we do a little, take some EVPs, do an EVP session?" And we did, and we have a cannon going off, or at least what to me sounds like artillery going off. And we sat there, and there were birds chirping, and I heard nothing. But when you listen back to that recording, you can hear a
And it
small
was
artillery go off.
weird because for me, mediumistically, I heard it and I felt it
Mhm.
in my chest about a minute and a half or so before it actually appears on the recording.
Yeah,
That was
Interesting.
weird that there was
yeah.
this time lapse between the two. But
Now, the question, crap, I almost fell out of my chair.
oh my goodness.
I missed the arm. The question that I have to ask Jenny was, could it have been a separate one that you felt
It's
and
possible.
heard versus the one that was captured on audio?
Very possible. Like I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
one and then there was a second. Yeah, that's possible. I didn't think about that.
Because I'm sure that, and a minute and a half is about the time it would take them to reload
To
a
reload
cannon
it.
too.
Very true.
And
We didn't think
and
about that.
yeah. But yeah, I'm interested to find out more about it. We have it saved, but I don't know what all the artillery and cannons sounded like. So I went online and was just kind of like listening to Civil War and I was like, that, yeah, I mean, that could be it. But in a lot of ways, I mean, what else are you supposed to do? I was standing out there, and I didn't hear anything. So I
Yeah.
know, I know it wasn't something that happened.
We heard an airplane go over and you can hear
Yeah,
traffic, birds, but yeah, there's no
not a
cannon.
cannon, no artillery fire that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a
Well,
veteran. I've been in the battlefield, so I would know. I probably would have had like a little like, hey, I
You
need to settle
probably
down
would
for a
have some
moment
little
if I would have heard
PTSD moment. Yeah.
it.
So
yeah, it's interesting when you hear those things. We were out at the cabin one night, and Ryan can vouch for this. It's 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, and we're hearing cannon fire.
Mm,
And
okay.
it doesn't have that sharp crack of modern weapons.
mhm.
It's kind of a muzzled thud.
Mhm.
Um, it's very peculiar.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've also heard, strange things out there like a horse and buggy going up the gravel access road beside our
Oh,
property. And
that's
Oh wow,
cool.
that's cool.
that we had no explanation. There were like five of us standing out there when that one went off.
Wow.
Just out of nowhere, we hear a horse and buggy going up the gravel road. We're like, what the hell is that?
It's a ghost
There we
That-
go.
buggy.
That's the only thing we could come up with.
That's
But we've
cool.
heard the drum and fife corps out there. We've heard native drumming. Um, it, I and I'm a strong believer in like stone tape theory and things of that. Residual energy for whatever reason gets released at any given time.
Mhm.
Uh, but to get it when you ask for it,
Yeah. That's
that's the
different.
key, and that's when you know you've got something there. Um, Probably my best EVP that shook me to my core from the cabin. So there was a young lady that was murdered in the Brick Rancher in 1979,
Oh wow.
and we were standing in her bedroom. I'm leaned up against her windowsill. I've got a public group with me of about 8 guests, and everybody went dead silent when I asked them to, so I could run audio. And I asked the simple question, Melissa, are you with us, sweetheart? And what sounds like a young female right beside me on the recorder, just as loud as I was, says, I'm with you.
Mm.
And I played that one back like 3 times, set the recorder down in the window and said, excuse me, I'll be right back. And I went outside and cried.
Oh wow.
Wow. Yeah.
It was just that
Mhm.
powerful. And it wasn't even from a mediumistic standpoint. It was just
Yeah.
catching that audio in that young girl's
Mm.
voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, because a ghost's a ghost, spooky, sheet thing until you have a connection with one and you realize that you're talking to something
It's a
that
person.
was human. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can 100% see that. Eh, Dennis, how many EVPs would you say that you and people you've investigated out there have captured and recorded?
Oh, Lord, I can't even venture to guess.
Wow. Yeah.
It's been that many. Um, I mean, yeah, countless number.
Do you have them like cataloged and stuff like that? Do you keep a record of those?
I'm going to admit I'm a little lazy. Um,
Okay.
I will bulk transfer them. So I have a 4 terabyte backup drive in front of me,
Mhm.
and I've got probably 6 folders from recordings and such from the cabin.
Yeah.
Ryan, that was in here earlier, I'm not sure if Ryan Jones is still here. He's got countless recordings as well.
Mhm.
It's yeah, it's kind of an endless supply.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
guess you probably figured out earlier. I love a good EVP. I'm a sucker for a
I
good
think
EVP.
they said that already. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would sometime down the road. I would if you have some primo ones, I would love to have to have you on just to go over some of the EVPs that you've captured out there because I know that the audience really likes to hear them too. It's just yeah, there's something about it.
Well, another one of my favorites, and I'm not a huge fan of this, but the spirit box.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's kind of hard to keep up with sometimes, and you just Bob.
Yeah.
What did it say? Did it say Bob? I don't know what the hell it said. But I'll tell you, so Haunted Nights Paranormal Events was out Friday and Saturday night this past weekend. And I sent you the link for it. And I don't know if you
Yes.
can pull that up, but
Yes.
it was two of their investigators, Ryan Baker and Brandon Johnson. Now, Brandon you can find on YouTube and TikTok is the ghost guy Brandon. He's got some really cool stuff. But they were in the basement, and you hear one says, "Are you hiding?" And the response back on the spirit box was, "Get lost." And they're
Mm.
like, "Are you lost?" And then you hear Ryan says, "Well, I'm going to put this flashlight back on the steps where you don't seem to like it." And you hear a very loud voice says, "No, get out."
Hmm.
And you hear Brandon respond something like, "Holy crap" or something. I forget what his response was, but it was definitely one of the loudest that I have
Mm.
ever heard, and it was a direct, plain response. And
Wow.
it's moments like
Yeah.
that that just they raise the goosebumps up, and you're like,
Oh
"Holy
yeah.
cow, that was
Wonderful.
great."
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have it. I have it up here, open in a tab. So, yeah, I can bring it up and we can play that real quick. But we have reached 9 o'clock, the top of the hour. If you're listening live on the East Coast, it's 9 o'clock. And so to do a little bit of a reset, we're here joined by Dennis Estlock, and we're talking about, well, his experiences in the paranormal and the cabin on 360. And we're going to get into a lot of things, uh, more to do with the cabin on 360, especially some events that are going to be coming up here. Um, yeah, there we go. 9 o'clock.
Do you want me to read my
Sure.
your work that
Your
you gave me
practice.
to do?
Yeah.
This episode of the Witching Hours podcast is brought to you by, well, us over at the witchinghourspodcast.com. Looking for more after the episode ends? Head to the witchinghourspodcast.com, our official home on the web. You'll find future guests, link to all the social media sites, including our archive of past episodes on YouTube, information, upcoming events, including Team Weird Takeover in June at Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park in West Virginia, and our merch store where you can purchase exclusive merch from the Witching Hours. So if you're brave enough, visit thewitchinghourspodcast.com. Stay curious and weird and maybe a little bit afraid.
There we go. Yeah, check out all the shows there. All right, so let me bring this up. I'm going to do this better than I did the other night, because I got just all confuzzled.
You
And
just
so here
got
we go.
discombobulated.
Yeah, so here we go.
That was our word from last show.
Yeah, discombobulated. Okay, give me 1 second. I'll have it up here for us.
Okay. I'm excited to see it.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. And so this is at the cabin on 360. Oh, I gotta get audio first.
Mm-hmm.
Actually captured. So we're at the cabin on 360 in Mechanicsville, Virginia. It's myself and my friend Ryan Baker.
Are you guys
in the
able to hear that?
basement of the brick on the property, and we had the spirit box on, and we captured one of the loudest, most direct, and clearest responses on the spirit box I've heard in a very long time. So we're using the spirit box to see where the spirits want us to go. I'm live streaming and he's using his FLIR. And all of a sudden he says, "I'm going to put the flashlight back on the stairs." And then we capture this. Where you at? Get lost?
Yeah. I'm going to put this flashlight back on the stairs that you like to turn on.
Good God.
I'm going to put this flashlight back on the stairs that you like to turn on.
Good God. Was it like get out, but like yelling?
Why are you so angry?
Check out this insane spirit box reaction.
Wow.
Why are
It
you so
is.
angry?
Screaming. That was a scream. Wow.
Yeah, that one got our attention. When they brought that to me and played it to me, I'm like, I don't know which one of you made somebody angry, but they definitely wanted to drag you out.
Did they leave, or did they
Oh no.
got
Oh
there?
no.
Got the
Yeah,
courage up to stay.
we don't run out.
Yeah. So
Unmute
you're
yourself, Frosty.
oh, we can't hear you, Frosty. Were you talking?
He's muted.
I was saying that's the thing about paranormal investigating. When everybody else wants to run away, you have to run in the room. You know, you got to stay put.
Yeah.
When I was listening to that clip when you sent it over earlier, Dennis, it was the first time I heard that. I thought it was so loud and so obvious. I thought it was somebody yelling from off camera. I had to watch it again a second time and be like, "Oh, that's coming."
That's the spirit box. Yeah.
Yeah, it was only the two of them in there. It was insane. That whole night was crazy. We got a ton of activity. Um, well, so I've started doing like second Tuesdays, and we call it ghostly gatherings. It's kind of a para 101, and then investigation. You know, my idea is to get basically John and Jane Doe that don't know anything about investigating come out, check out the equipment we use, check out what we do, and check out the location. So we've got a guest in the basement with us that's doing Estes method. And for those that don't know, Estes method is you're listening to the spirit box, you're wearing noise canceling headphones. We're asking questions to see if you can get the answer in the spirit box. And then you call out the answer. I've got 4 or 5 of my volunteers down there with me, and I'm sitting back off to the side. They're all in front of me. There is nobody behind me. But off this back right corner, I hear this young female voice goes, "Hi." I turned and snapped my head around and looked, and I looked back at the volunteers, and they're all going, "Oh, yeah, you heard that too?"
Wow.
It was insane. But yeah, it's kind of crazy some of the activity that's happened out there. Um, full bodied apparitions, shadow figures today. So I have a team that's coming in for the whole weekend from New Jersey. And I promised them that I would get a shower running for them. So I'm in the cabin, I'm doing the work, getting the shower fixed and everything. I'm in the upstairs hallway at this point, putting a lock on a door that I'm storing some of the stuff for Cabin Con in. And I hear this male voice through the whole building echoes and goes, "Hey,
Oh my
what
goodness.
the hell?" I thought somebody had come into the building.
Yeah.
I went through the building. There's nobody there. I
Nobody
looked at the
Wow.
cameras and nobody had triggered the cameras. It just through the whole building was this scream of "Hey," and there's nobody on any of the cameras.
Wow.
So it's always interesting to say the least.
Sounds like it.
So
We have-
I was going to ask real quick. So we kind of talked about you going into your involvement in the paranormal. We've talked about kind of what's going on at the Cabinet 360. How, like, kind of go through how you became so involved specifically with the Cabin on 360.
It's kind of a funny story. Like I said, Ryan's grandfather bought the land. And then Ryan remembered as a child his dad coming home saying that there had been a murder on the property. Well, we had no clue who the victim was, who the perpetrator was, didn't know an age or anything. Just knew that there had been a murder. Well, fast forward, I don't know, 20 years, 25, 30 years, whatever. And Ryan is now teamed up with me. He's become co-founder on my team, Commonwealth Researchers of the Paranormal. And he's like, "Hey, we ought to go out to the log cabin in the Brick Rancher and see what's out there." In my mind, I'm thinking, why the hell are we going to do that? They're just 2 empty buildings sitting on the side of the highway. There's not going to be anything there. They're only, 30-ish years old. It took him about a year to talk me into going out there. And
It's a good thing he was persistent.
yeah, it was. But we walked through the log cabin, and I am starting to mediumistically pick up on all the different entities that are there. And there's probably 4, 5, 6 different spirits in the log cabin. Well, we walked into the brick rancher, and no word of a lie, I'm 3 steps in the door, stopped dead in my tracks, and I looked at Ryan and I said, man, there's something here that is not human and never has been. This place is effed
Mm.
up.
Oh
And
no.
he's like, really? You think so? And I went, no, I know so. Something is wrong here. Something is off. So
Wow.
we walked through the building,
Yeah.
we get down to the basement, and there was a young female scream that echoed through the house, just absolute sheer terror. And I mean, it was loud enough that we didn't even look at each other and then normal response and go, did you hear that? It was, what the hell was that?
Hmm.
We run upstairs, run through the house, run outside, run around the yard. And then we meet back in the front yard and we're like, bro, that actually echoed in the house.
Wow.
That came from within.
Mm-hmm.
So that set us on the path of investigating the property. Um, and then after probably a year and a half or so, Jones Construction leased the brick rancher out. And all this time, we'd just been using the log cabin to hang out in. That was kind of headquarters. We didn't investigate it. But since we now have a lease and we've lost access to the brick rancher, we started investigating the log cabin and discover it's just as active. And then we're like, that's all battlefield. There's got to be something
Hmm.
back there. So we started investigating the woods, and we're having crazy activity back there too. So here we are 8 years later. His dad, who's now president of the company, grandpa has passed on. And dad says, all right, guys, you need to pack everything up. You need to clear out. We're going to actively market and sell the properties. And I went, I can't let that happen.
Hmm.
It's way too much there for the paranormal community to gain from what can be learned from it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't let it go.
Hmm.
So I stepped up and took ownership. And I've never been this far in debt in my life, but here we are.
It seems like that happens to so many people that that own paranormal locations. Is like they just feel this draw to it, this pull to it. Like, I need it to be here. I need to keep this the way it is. I need to be the steward of this place, no matter what. Is that the way
Hmm.
you felt too?
Now, I didn't really care who bought it as long as it was going to guarantee that it was still going to be in the paranormal field, and we couldn't guarantee that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody that was in the paranormal stepped up and said, hey, I'll buy it. I
Mhm.
had people that offered to partner with me. I actually had a group of about 5 people that all wanted to go together. Then COVID hit.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And after COVID, they had all made different arrangements and everything. So when the time came that his dad said, clear out, they already have other commitments. And it's like, all right, I guess I'm going to fly this damn thing solo.
Hmm.
Wow.
So with a couple of very dear friends that support me as much as they can, and a good group of volunteers, we do absolutely everything we can to keep this place up and running and try to keep the bills paid each month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, that's really great. I mean, and like over like the last year or so is the first time I heard of the cabin on 360, and I am absolutely enamored. I'm ready to check it out for sure. So I'd love to get out there and do it. And if you would like to come check out the cabin on 360, do you mind talking a little bit about the event you have coming up?
Sure. So we've got Cabin Con
Hmm.
2025, May 30, 31st, and June 1st. I've got um, some really good speakers and presenters coming out. You saw a couple of them were here just a moment
Hmm.
ago. You have Fredericksburg Paranormal Research Investigations,
Yeah.
uh, FPRI, John Sullivan, He's been doing this for quite a while. He runs all the investigations at Belgrove Plantation.
Mhm.
And I know I'm going to screw this up and forget people.
It always happens. I
And
try to
this is
remember
why I
everybody.
have this.
There you go.
But I've got folks like John Stevens that runs Paranormal Events in Virginia Facebook page. He's coming out because he's a Civil War fanatic, and he's been to dozens of locations. There we go. I've got like Kimberly Sage, who's a wonderful medium. She's coming out to help us and
Yeah, she's one of our friends.
Yeah, she's coming out and do a workshop. And then, Booze Paranormal. Ron Wood builds wonderful equipment for what we do. So he's going to come out and share some of his expertise and knowledge on building the equipment. I've got Jason McLeod coming out. He's got a couple of really good books out. Rachel D'Amico, she's got a wonderful workshop that she does on stone tape theory, residual, what makes a haunting. Candy Howard coming out as well. They're all coming to us from the Haunted Mafia, so is their page. And then, of course, Middletown Paranormal is coming out as well, and they're going to speak with us. Ronnie and Shayla do a lot of locations. They do a lot of investigations, and they're just generally fun to talk with. But, one of the things is a generally good time with some of Paranormal's finest folks. This is just me and Haunted Nights FPRI, my team, Commonwealth researchers. We have true, and everybody says it's a myth that doesn't exist, but para-unity. We all back each other up. My team does Pamplin Historical Park fundraisers. We've done Henricus Historical Park fundraisers just for the parks, the historic locations. And all these teams have stepped up to back us up in the past when we have a space larger or a group larger than we can handle solo. So they're all stepping up to back us up, and they're all coming out to Cabin Con.
Well, that's great.
I'm hoping to have about 40 different vendors, crafts and books and team shirts and, whatever they want to vend. So it's basically just to get the paranormal community locally anyway, and some from much further away, just to come together as one giant team and have a good time, share our knowledge with those that don't generally get into this.
We kind of became active probably about the time around, COVID 2020. Jenny really started focusing on mediumship, and we started doing the Witching Hours podcast a little while after that. And so, we're fairly, we're just kind of getting to know people in the paranormal community. And I will say, I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but going to the events like the Hanover Tavern Paracon and stuff like that, we have a really great paranormal community in Virginia so far. And the people and beyond that, because we've met a lot of people from other places all over the country, really. And I heard a lot of bad things when I first started getting into this stuff a little bit, or not bad things, but drama kind of stuff. But I really haven't, it's been great. I've met a lot of great people. And so events like this are really cool to get out to, because what I found, I'm not someone who I like the idea of going out, but I also don't like the idea of being around a lot of people sometimes. Like, it's like, so sometimes Jenny has to drag me out a little bit. But I really look forward to these things now, because the great part about it is if you're interested in the paranormal, if you're interested in ghosts, if you're interested in paranormal investigating, if you're interested in mediumship and things like that, you go to these events and you are around a whole bunch of like-minded people.
Yep.
Like, you have things in common with everybody there because they're interested in the same things you're interested in. And you have a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge, a lot of background, that want to talk about their experiences. And so, I'm really looking forward to getting a ticket and heading out myself. So hopefully I'll see everyone there.
I look forward to having you all join us. Yeah, it's you know, so I ride with Patriot Guard riders.
Mhm.
I'm also a Mason, and the paranormal community is similar to those. Anytime you have a large bunch of
Mhm.
people, you're going to have the old saying, "There's one in every crowd."
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's going to happen no matter what.
People are
But
people. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
in the paranormal field that we have here in Virginia, I've worked with folks as far away as uh, the far western side of the state. I've worked with folks in the Tidewater area, folks up in Northern Virginia, FPRI there in Fredericksburg. Um, Pandora's Peregrination is also in Fredericksburg, and they've all come together to back me and my team up when we have large groups that we're
Mhm.
dealing with. And they're just a wonderful group of people in this state. And I watch
Yes.
some of the other states that they're constantly at each other's throats,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying this and they're saying that, and they're just backstabbing one another mercilessly. And I'm like, man, I am so glad I am in
Yeah.
Virginia. You know, we got guys like Daryl that, he's got Spirit of Clover Hill Village, another wonderful location that's owned and run by a great guy that doesn't want to be part of the drama and doesn't want to be
Yeah.
part of all the bullshit. He just wants to bring history back to life and give those that have passed before us a voice.
Yeah.
And that's all we're out here to do.
Yeah, and it's a great these events are a great opportunity to do that. Like I said, you're just around, like-minded people, people who have a lot of experience, people who have a lot of stories to share. And I think so many of us are, I mean, whether you're a skeptic, whether you're a true believer, or you fall somewhere in between, most people are still just looking for that evidence and looking for the truth and trying to figure out what in the hell's going on, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like I said earlier, when this meat suit dies, what do I have to look forward to?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because,
Yeah,
life is a death sentence. Nobody gets out alive. But what's
exactly.
Well,
on the other end of this?
well, apparently you're going to be messing with people's picture frames on the
There
walls.
we go.
That's the smallest part of it. Look, you, you, you see how many things are written on there?
How many
That's a
names you got?
short list of all the names of who I'm going to torment.
Oh, no.
Check the list, people.
It's a
Make sure
big
you
list.
ain't on it.
Yeah, ain't Santa Claus's list.
That's not Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's the naughty list. No, they're the ones that. So look, when I told you I had my podcast for years, and the running joke was they're all going to know it's me because they're going to be, Dennis, can you talk to the little red light? Can you tell us you're there? Bicycle.
Yeah.
It's bicycle. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Ah, jeez, that's
There we
Dennis being
go.
a smart ass.
So, so you guys are going to be doing, I imagine, be doing live investigations for the nights at the Paracon at the Cabin Con.
Well, we actually have tickets for the investigations. I'm going to do investigation Friday night and Saturday night. I've got them at maxed at 30. Um, and that way we don't inundate the location. There's
Yeah.
nothing. I've been in some locations where it's a public investigation, and you got 30 people in a group, and it's impossible.
Yeah.
Anything you capture, you just have to throw it away because there's
Yeah.
so much going on.
Mhm.
So with the cabin, the nice thing is I've got 5 areas that I can rotate through. So we're going to maintain small groups.
That's
Nice.
good. That's really nice.
And that way, if you get an EVP or if you hear a voice, you're close enough to the rest of your group. This is real. This is
Yeah.
legit.
Mhm.
That sounds good.
It's impossible to keep 25 people in a group silent.
No, yeah, me and Frosty are both teachers, so we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've only got 8 or 10 in a group, it's pretty easy to know when somebody spoke or didn't.
Mhm.
And for the most part, you've got mature people that aren't and plus alcohol is banned on the property. So you don't have some drunk
Yeah.
asshole over
Yeah.
here doing dumb things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I wanted to
So
go back to the entity that you have in the basement at the brick
Mm.
house. So you are feeling and thinking that it is not a human entity. It might
Mhm.
have been around for a really long time.
Mhm.
So do you think that that entity might have played a role or had some hand in the murder that happened there?
there is speculation on that,
Hmm.
but I want to clear one thing up. I am not in any way, shape, or form um, acknowledging that or dismissing his actions. I mean,
Oh yeah.
this
Hmm.
17-year-old
Mhm.
boy raped and murdered his 12-year-old half sister.
Oh
Now, you
wow.
can tell me that there was some sort of entity there that manipulated his
Hmm.
mind or whatever.
Mm.
That does not take away from the fact that this young man did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Now, on the phone, he was asked, "Did you do it?" And his response was, "Even though I stand here today as a guilty man, I wasn't there that day. That effing house should have been burned down years ago." So I think he's trying to dismiss part of his actions and blame
Mhm.
it on a different,
Hmm.
on this darker entity.
Yeah.
But I will not dismiss his actions and say
Yeah,
that
for
something
sure.
else did it. But I will
Hmm.
tell you, we had a young lady come out and had something that startled her and scared her witless. And she came back 2 weeks later and gave us a drawing. And I'm going to try to hold this up in front of the camera. Let's see how well this works.
Oh yeah. That's
Okay.
pretty scary looking.
Uh,
Mhm.
is that focused in?
Yeah, we can see
Yeah,
it
I can
pretty
see
good.
it pretty well. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what she said was staring at her. Now, I hadn't seen this thing.
Hmm.
So I can't say yay or nay, that's what's there. But I will tell you, I know something is there just from the energy. But about 6 weeks after she gave us that drawing, we had a team came out and used a thermal camera. And they captured this little fella. And let's see if I can do this
Mm.
without picking up the glare. Let me zoom in on him. Try to do this without a glare.
Oh my goodness, that's like almost exactly what she drew.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you, Keisha. So, for those of you who can't see this because you're
Yeah.
listening to the podcast somewhere else, the drawing is, it looks like a pen drawing of a very terrifying, kind of male looking figure, has very dark features, dark eyes. And then the thermal image has very similar featured
Yeah.
image.
Just kind of the general shape
Yeah, the
of the face
shape
and stuff.
and what
Mhm.
looks like very dark eyes that are pretty scary and very similar.
And now the young lady that gave us that pencil drawing said that she drew it. She said, I couldn't really distinguish if it was feathers or scales. It wasn't
Mm,
Mm.
human skin, it had some sort of texture to it. But she was part of one of our public groups, and there were 5 people went in the basement together. It was her and her father, and um, 2 of my teammates, and then Bill Hartley from the TV series Ghosts of Shepherdstown. And she was the only one that actually saw this thing.
mm.
And it freaked her out enough that Ryan Jones there, um, noticed something was off. When he went over and asked her what's wrong, he said she was just pointing, shaking with tears running down her face, going, "It's just staring at me. Don't you see it? It's just staring
Mhm.
at me."
Ugh.
So he gets her out of the building, took her next door to sit on the steps of the log cabin. Um, I get yelled at from about mid woods that, hey, Cameron needs you right now.
Mhm.
Something's wrong. So I take off at a dead run and I go up and sit on the steps with her. I get her calmed down and I said, all right, talk to me. What happened? And she said this thing was on the backside of the steps in the basement just staring at me.
Mm.
And nobody else saw it, but I know it was there. It was big, it was black, So I took her off to the side. I did a grounding and blessing session with her, and then took her back into the log cabin to get her energy back,
Mhm.
or back into the brick rancher rather. But she was profoundly shaken by it. Like I said, she brought us that drawing 2 weeks later. And when she handed it to me, she said, I just want you to see what I saw so you understand why I was so shaken up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely do it.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's one of those things too, Dennis, where and I don't want to I don't know what evidence has gotten, because you said you weren't sure, but we've come across I guess a couple times now where things have been attached to the land, and it's not ghosts. It wasn't human, spirits that are from there, but we have run across elementals before.
Mm-hmm.
And we've run across out actually in Charles City County. We were out there for a while, and there was something. I don't think that was an elemental, but there was something attached to that land that was unpleasant, very unpleasant. So, do you think it's a possibility of any elemental, anything like that, or you just have no clue?
So my suspicion on this thing is that it's an elemental.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the natives that were on this land would have been, given who's here now anyway, Mattapanai, Pamunkey, Chickahominy tribes, and all of those tribes pretty much fell under Chief Powhatan's rule, under the Powhatan
Mhm.
umbrella, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They had, now, myth tells us that they would conjure what they called a pukwudgie. Now, in the origin of the pukwudgie, which was an elemental spirit that they would call forward, it was to bring them prosperity in um, crops, prosperity in trade, and generally it was to bring benefit to the tribe. Well, according to lore, they started using the pukwudgie to do harm to others.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Mm.
pukwudgie discovers, hey, we're being used for less than righteous purpose, and
Mhm.
turned on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, hypothetically, they summon this pukwudgie, bring it forth. It does good for the tribe. It turns on the tribe. The tribe then gets pushed off the land by the settlers in the 1630s. And this thing's there going, now what? So
Mhm.
now it's just human
Yeah.
entities it's not fond of. It just wants to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not willing to leave it alone. I want to know what it can do.
Yeah. That makes sense, because we've had some similar issues there before. So, and elementals is interesting things because there for a while, and I guess it still is. It's very popular for people to want to jump and use the D word, the demon word.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many other possibilities, and I feel like a lot of times when you're investigating, if you're not open to all the different possibilities of things that could exist that we don't even know about, you're kind of limiting yourself on what you
Yeah.
could on evidence that you could collect and find out. Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that we haven't even thought about
Mhm.
or that we have any clue about that are out there too.
Yeah, I'm certain. And limiting your thought process on what it could be, or limiting your knowledge on what is out there. You know, there is so much knowledge to be gained by the
Mm-hmm.
paranormal. In, well, I guess for lack of better words, in the elemental and spiritual world, there's
Mm.
so much to be gained.
Yeah.
To limit yourself on your research and the areas of research that you do is kind of foolish, because you don't know what you're going to run into. And you may run into something that is just absolute menace to humanity. And if you're not well versed or trained, you
Mhm.
can find yourself in a major pickle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So,
definitely
so
protection. That's one thing I talk about all the time, and that's important to do is when you get into this stuff, you know, do it with experienced people. Like seek out people because you can definitely get into these situations. It's good to understand how to be protected when you go into places like that. Just like the Ouija boards and stuff like that. Like I don't think there's necessarily bad tools, but you need to know what you're
The
doing
what?
before you get yourself into a situation.
I have that same exact coffee cup.
Oh, really?
I do.
Excellent.
The Ouija board coffee. That would have been funny if we were both using it at the same
There we
time.
go.
Yeah. And it's not too late. I can still go get one.
There you go. It's never too
So
late for coffee. That's my
uh,
belief anyway.
I have tea, but
There we
anyway.
go.
So your not so nice entity and the brick rancher, does it do anything really terrible to people, or is it just grouchy and wants to be left alone?
It will play in your mind.
Okay.
I will give you a prime example. And from time to time, it decides to leave the property and
Mhm.
go wreak havoc elsewhere. I had a gentleman during one of our public investigations. I move group to group, so I'm constantly floating. So I have a group that's in the basement, and I go down and I hear this man walking around going, "Come on, you're supposed to be such a little bad butt. Show me what you can do. I don't even believe in you. I think you're just hokey."
Mm.
Sir, I'm going to ask you kindly, please
Mhm.
don't be provoking.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I'm not worried about this thing. I don't even believe in this BS anyway." So, all right, well, you know what? You do you, boo. You're a grown ass man.
He's
I
going to be
let him
crying in
go.
about 10 minutes.
Um, didn't happen in about 10 minutes, but about noon the next day, I get a phone call.
Yeah.
And he's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm the guy that was in the basement last night, kind of being well, I was being an asshole. And I went,
Mhm.
"Yes, sir.
Mhm.
How can I help you?" And he's like, "Well, is it possible for something to have left with us?"
Mhm.
It certainly is. Why do you ask? And he goes, "Well, my wife and I, well, I've got a Honda Passport minivan, and we got about a mile away last night. And well, the stereo hasn't worked for about a year and a half in this thing. And the dealership told me it's the whole center console thing, like the heat and air doesn't work or anything. This whole thing is gone. It's like $4,500 to replace it. I haven't. I'm not doing that." He goes, "But we got about a mile and a half away, and the stereo came on full blast playing death metal. My wife and I don't listen to that shit." I looked at her and she's already looking at me. He goes, "I immediately hit the brakes, pushed the button, opened the side door, and said, 'You got to get the F out. You can't leave with us.'" He goes, "My stereo died right there." He
Mm.
goes, "But I continued on. Well, I went out this morning and I kicked the crap out of the dash. I think I broke a toe, but I couldn't get the stereo to come back on. You don't think something left with this, do you?" And I've got, I'm doing the same thing Jenny Lee's doing right now. I am laughing. I said, "You know what? It sounds to me like you did the right thing in telling him to get out, that he
Yeah.
can't leave with you, but I
Yeah.
don't recommend provoking in the future." And he's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
trust me, we probably won't be back out there."
You don't
They
say.
haven't. They haven't.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's you know have have a little faith in those that are leading the investigations at the locations that you go
Mhm.
to. Trust that they know what they're talking to when they say don't do this or don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a good idea. And you know, if you can find a team that knows what they're doing, that has been to a location several times and they're leading investigations there for you, you can pretty much assume that they're going to know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Follow their lead, listen to their advice and their pointers because they're doing it, one, at no cost, no charge, no gain of their own. When my team goes out to Henricus or Pamplin Historical Park, we're not there to gain anything. We're
Mhm.
there to do a service for the park and fundraise for them. So we don't care if you get no activity. It's no sweat off of our backs at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want you all to have a good time and be safe. So if the team that is running the location you visit tells you, okay, here's my recommendations, don't do this, don't do that, you definitely may want to listen to them.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the same rules apply to the spirit world as they
Mhm.
should to the living
Mhm.
people, which is basically don't be an ass.
Yes. And
Don't be a dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. Look, there's a very simple philosophy in the paranormal. If you are an asshole in life, you're an asshole in death. Just
Hmm.
because you lost your body doesn't mean you get an all new personality and
Yeah.
everything is sunshines and unicorns.
I've
You're
run
still an
into
asshole.
plenty. Yeah, I've run into plenty of those. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean, I've been in numerous locations. Matter of fact, I was in Moundsville Prison, West Virginia State Penitentiary. I'm standing by myself. There is nobody closer than 100 feet away from me. And I've got a huge wall of cells off to my left and the indoor playground, they call it, off to my right. And I'm standing there with a voice recorder just listening. And I catch a glimpse of light out of the right corner of my eye, and I turn and look, and it's two investigators a couple of 100 feet away in the main hallway. While I'm looking off that way, I felt just the lightest little touch down my left cheek. Now, I spent 15 years bouncing nightclubs. I've been hit a time or 20. Um, this nose didn't get this jacked up shape because God had one that he was going to throw away and went, you know what, just stick it on that face.
Mhm.
This thing's been broke a few times. But I turned my head to look to see what touched me, and I got that electric jolt up the side of my head,
Mm,
like I'd been clocked in the jaw. And I
wow.
instantly shook my head and I went, which one of you sons of bitches just punched me in the jaw? And the voice recorder sounds like somebody stepped right up beside me and goes,
Oh my goodness.
you rat bastard. So, but and I wasn't provoking or anything, but
Yeah.
these things can happen. Now, the
Hmm.
thing that's in the basement, we've had light scratches occur on people,
Hmm.
um, but for the most part, it's in their head. Um,
Mhm.
they'll get angry for no reason. I had a team drove nine and a half
Mhm.
hours from New Hampshire, 7 people. They rented for the full weekend. They drive down here 9.5 hours, all piled in one Suburban with their gear and their luggage and whatever for the full weekend. I give them the history, I give them the tour, I tell them where to hide the key, make sure the lights are off, the doors are locked, and I'm going home by. Text me when you leave. No word of a lie. An hour and a half later, I get a phone call from him. He says, all right, brother, the lights are out, the doors are locked, the keys where you asked, and we're going home.
Wow.
And I'm like, is everybody okay? God, I hope this isn't a family emergency or something. He goes, oh, no, no. Everybody's okay, but we just weren't ready for this shit.
Oh, wow.
Wait, wait,
Mhm.
wait, wait. What went off the rails so bad in an hour and a half?
Hmm.
And he's like, well, keep in mind, we drove 9.5 hours down. Not a crossword amongst my team members the whole drive. He's like, my team is more like a family than just a team. He
Hmm.
goes, but after you left within the first 20 minutes, I had to step between two of them because they were ready to deliver a beat down on each other.
Wow.
I get them calmed down, get them separated. I sent a young man to the way back to put out trap cameras, and he comes running back in the cabin. He's white, he's sweating. You can tell he is scared. I asked him what was wrong, and he said he stopped to relieve himself in the woodline about halfway back and found himself surrounded by cloaked, hooded figures.
Whoa.
Closed his eyes, said the Lord's Prayer, kind of opens his eyes and peeks around, and they're gone. Needless to say, I didn't get trap cameras in the back. He goes, not long after that, I've got 2 other teammates I've got to step in between because they're ready to beat each other down.
Mhm.
He goes, but the icing on the cake is when my best friend of 20 plus years that I've been investigating with for close to 20 years stepped up and looked me face to face. I didn't recognize the look in his eyes. And he says, you know what? I don't know why, but right now I just want to smash your effing face.
Wow.
Like, well, that's time. We're done. Everybody pack up. We're going home. He's like, I have to pick safety over evidence and investigation every
Yeah.
day.
Totally.
He's like,
Yeah.
but that's the thing that this entity in the basement is good at,
Mm-hmm.
is it will find, for lack of better terms, a chink in the armor,
Mm-hmm.
and that's who it's going to mess with.
It kind of sounds like it styles itself after whatever the person is, like you said, like what their weakness is or what they're scared of, or that it can change its
Yeah.
appearance, like all those
Oh,
things.
well, it can.
Yeah.
So Sean Austin was on the TV series Demon Files, and they only did like the teaser 3 episodes, I think. But I've got him and Dave Spinks, who's been on several different episodes of like uh, Bigfoot and mountain monsters, things like that.
Mhm.
They've come down to spend the weekend. We're in the basement, and the three of us are kind of standing in a little triangle. I'm telling them some of the history that's happened. Well, first, as we're walking across the front yard, I tell them, my recommendation is have audio running when you walk up the ramp before you even go in the door. And they kind of looked at each other like, yeah. Well, because it's that haunted. And I went, yeah. We walked in the door to a full on conversation between two males,
Wow.
audible conversation, but nobody was in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we get down to the basement, and Sean's got his back almost to the wall. And Dave's standing like at his 1 o'clock position. I'm standing at like his 11 o'clock position. We're in a triangle. And out of nowhere, Dave gets this just shit eating grin on his face. And he goes, hey, Sean, look behind you. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Just look behind you. I don't trust you. I am not turning around. He's like, no, go ahead. So Sean takes like 2 big steps forward, turns and looks, and there is something similar to that on the wall
A
behind
giant spider?
the biggest wolf spider I have ever seen.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
This thing was
A
bigger
huge
than a
spider.
cigarette pack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a wolf spider doesn't get bigger than a cigarette pack normally,
Yeah.
but this one was. Well, Sean's answer is nope, nope. I will F with demons all day long, but I don't do spiders.
Don't do
And
spiders.
I'm like, Sean, I would be real careful. And he's like, I don't care, man.
Yeah.
I don't do spiders. I'll F with demons all day long. And I went, be real careful what you tell them, brother. They're going to use it against you.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, that's fine. Well, I meet back with him Sunday morning. I actually missed Dave. He had already rolled out. But I meet up with Sean Sunday morning and I said, so how did last night go? And he's like, remember you told me be careful what you tell them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What happened? He's like, that bastard got me.
Oh
What do you
no.
mean?
Mm.
He's like, well, I was doing Periscope Live, so I got my phone in my right hand. I had an SLS camera in my left hand. He goes, I thought Dave had come down behind me because I felt like someone was right there. What he didn't know at that moment was Dave was over in the log cabin. Sean's in the basement. This ball of energy about the size of a baseball came down from the rafters, hovered over his shoulder for a moment, and when he turned to look, it shot back up. Then he turns back around and looks at the SLS camera, and there's a humanoid figure on the SLS camera, like 5-6 feet in front of him. And he's like, bro, it was crazy. Out of nowhere, there's this human figure standing in the middle of the basement. And then it did this. Now, what I'm showing now is an SLS
Oh wow.
image of what looks like a
Like
giant
a giant
spider.
spider. I
Yeah.
knew that was going to happen.
And
I knew it.
Yeah.
his statement to me was, and it was funny because he does this motion. he throws his arms out like he's a spider, and he goes, about the time it grew all those extra legs, I almost shit all over your basement. I said, bro, I'm telling you,
Wow.
don't tell them your biggest fears. They're going to use it against you.
That's what
Holy smokes.
I was feeling when you were telling about all this things with this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very clear distinction that it
Yeah.
can make itself look however it wants to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's not a matter of it's going to pick on, the biggest, scariest person in the room. I think it picks on whoever has the most open armor, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I generally go in, I don't ground myself. I don't do a prayer before investigations. I want to experience what it has. And I know the spirits that I carry with me, and I know my belief and my religious beliefs and everything else. I'm an ordained minister. So I generally will rely on my spirits and my guides to, for lack of better terms, cover my backside when I'm done. But I want to experience everything the location has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
We were hosting a New Year's Eve party out there one night several years ago. And I'm sitting in the corner drinking my coffee, having a good time. I've got team members and their kids and friends and their kids. TV going with Times Square, and the kids are dancing and everybody's laughing. And I'm getting mad. And the more I sat there, and the madder I got. And then I started having images run through my head of just reach down and draw my weapon and just start snapping everyone. So I got up and I walked by Ryan and I said, I'll be back. I got to go next door. So I walked next door and I threw the front door open and banged it against the wall and yelled, all right, Mother Efra, we need to talk. And through that house was just a low growl. And I went straight to the basement and I started going off. I will bring my saints to bear. I will call upon my saints and my guides and my guardians. I will push you through the light. I will burn enough sage in this house to set off the neighbor's smoke alarms. And while I'm going off, Ryan comes over and he just kind of walks down the stairs and looks at me and he goes, you all right? I'm good, man. I'm just setting it straight. All right. Well, so the house yelled at me. I'll be next door if you need me. And he laughed. But it's one of those where it knew at that moment, I think, who could inflict the most harm. And it wasn't because I was the biggest one there. It wasn't because I was the baddest one there. It was because I had the weapon. Now, does that mean, oh, well, you shouldn't have been carrying a weapon? No, it means you have to know what you're doing and you have to know how to protect yourself and you have to pay attention to the emotions that are running in yourself at that moment and recognize what's yours and what's not yours.
Yeah. That's the key to so much of this work is knowing what's yours and what's not yours.
Exactly. And I've been in prisons before where I just start getting mad. And I'm like, all right, I know somebody's playing with me. Those are your emotions. You are not allowed to put them on me. I will not take your emotions. You keep that. And I'll step outside, ground myself, come right back in, and I feel just fine. But, this is a field that a lot of people take as a game. And it's really not. There is so much in that spiritual world and so much in that realm that we don't understand. We don't comprehend what it's capable of.
Yeah.
And I've had countless people ask me, well, why don't you do a blessing and cleanse the cabin and cleanse the rancher? And I'm like, this is my library. These are my books. I can't learn if I get rid of them. And if we look back through history, how many times has there been something traumatic happen in this world where they've claimed something influenced them to do it? I want to know, can they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to the point now that we've proven, yeah, they can.
Mm. All right. Well, that's the Cabin on 360. There's going to be the Cabin Con 2025. www.tco360.com. If you need that web address, that's listed down below in the description below. If you're listening later, you can find that information in the episode description and click on the link. It will take you there, and you can purchase tickets. There's going to be live paranormal investigations, vendors, all kinds, speakers, all kinds of wonderful things. So go if you want to check it out. Go grab your tickets now. I'm going to be there. I'm going to stop by for sure and check it out. Thanks so much, Dennis, for coming on and talking to us tonight.
Is there anywhere else that people can find you on the interwebs?
Oh, good Lord. So he's already mentioned TCO360.com. You can find the Cabin on 360 on Facebook. We've got 2 different TikToks going, the Cabin on 360. Do a search for that. I am easy to find on Facebook, just Dennis Estlock, Estlock. No middle initial. I reserve that one for family.
Okay.
There's also a follow page that Facebook forced me to do, a like page or public. Public figure. That's what they call it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hardly ever on it, but find me there. Daryl, Rhonda, thank you guys for hanging out with us this whole time. I'm assuming Sully's still in here too. Rhonda is going to be one of our presenters at Cabin Con.
Excellent.
She does a wonderful job and just super sweet person. So, yeah, I'm fairly easy to find, but I look forward to having you guys join us at Cabin Con 2025. I'm still trying to figure out my location on it. There's some issue, but we'll find out. I think we've overgrown what the cabin itself can hold.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do it offsite, but I don't know. Finding a location is kind of proving to be a little pain in the keister.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. We're heading close to the top of the hour, but we'd love to have you back on down the road, Dennis,
Yeah.
especially like maybe we could get some of those EVPs we were talking about and have some more stuff we can showcase from stuff you've run into out there with the cabin.
Plus, there was a whole topic that we didn't even get to, which was remote viewing.
Oh, yeah.
That.
Yeah.
So we're going to have you back on.
Yeah.
I would
remote
love
viewing
to.
fans. Wonderful.
I would
Excellent.
love to.
All right, everybody. Coming up, we have a couple more shows before we go into our schedule change, which hopefully we'll be talking about probably on the next episode, which is going to be Heidi Kemper, a psychic medium, healer, and spiritualist who's going to come and talk to us next week. And then we're going to have Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez on. We're going to talk about Staticom. We were talking about the Estes method and a spirit box today, and this is some other technology that's coming out for paranormal investigation that I'm interested. I've learned a little bit about, and I'm ready. I want to talk about it on the show. We've talked about it before. I've told you guys about it, and kind of wanting to learn more about it. So we're going to be talking about that on the 24th. As I said before, there'll be new information coming about the witching hour soon. We're excited to share with you guys. And we're going to go ahead, and for all you who are listening at another time, in another place, we will see you next time. And for everyone who's still hanging out with us over on Facebook and over on YouTube and over on Twitch with all our Team Weird people, let's go find someone to raid out. We got Muso Patty Savage who is streaming tonight. So let's go visit our friend.
Our friend across the pond.
Yeah.
One of our friends across the pond. We got quite a few of those now.
We have quite a few friends across the pond now for sure. So yeah, we're going to go raid. Make sure I got everything spelled right. All right, Jenny, you on tomorrow night?
I should be. Yep.
All right. Medium readings tomorrow night with Medium Jenny Lee. We'll see you guys next time. We're going to raid out. We'll see you next week. Take care and good night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Everybody have a blessed week.